Chest up, shoulders back. This is Revival Fitness, your home for gains and brains. And I haven't been terribly active on here lately. I have been in the lab, well, in the gym, and I've been experimenting with some things, and I am now going to share them with you because they are going to give you a lot of potential benefits, even though the adjustments may seem relatively small. I get a lot of questions about my training. If you guys would like to check out my programs, they're linked down below. I lay out everything that you need to make serious gains in the long term, not just exercises on a sheet. But regarding form itself, one thing that I have to note here is you need to really mentally lock in for your sets, not just the first couple exercises of the day or the ones that you really like. It needs to be all of them. And I think the biggest way that this manifests beyond just not putting in enough effort or being lazy with the form is taking too long between reps. And I'm guilty of this myself, so you know how this goes. You finish a rep, you sort of wait at the top for a second or two, maybe you even look around for some godforsaken reason. You do another rep, you pause at the top again, and by the time you finish the set, you are effectively giving yourself mini rest breaks in between each rep. So not only are you effectively making the reps easier when you do this, you are impairing your own ability to properly judge how close you are to failure. The entire set turns into this sort of ongoing rest pause. If you are not familiar with that term, a typical rest pause, you typically will reach failure, wait about 10 seconds or so, maybe a bit longer depending on who you ask, then do as many reps as you can. After that point, it is a type of intensifier. And other intensifiers include things like drop sets, supersets, assuming they're for the same muscle group, and things like partials after you fail in the full range. God forbid you do lengthened partials. Are those still a thing? You're going to commonly see those type of intensifiers used in hypertrophy training, especially among bodybuilders. I don't think they offer any real benefit. Some would even argue that they only offer drawbacks. I have not really used them at all in the past year or so, and this is something that never goes away in the gym scene. But just because the pump gets more intense in the moment does not mean it's actually going to net you more growth. So for pretty much every exercise that I do, I simply do straight sets. I do the given warm-up sets, I lock in for the working sets. I typically take all exercises within, I'd say, at least 2 reps of failure, usually 1. Oftentimes I will fail if it is something like a machine or an isolation, and then I go to the next exercise. Rinse and repeat. Painfully simple, but oftentimes that's all it has to be. And I'll tell you what, you do that for long enough, you're probably going to get sore. And I don't advocate getting the extreme leg day meme soreness, can't walk, can't sit on the toilet. That is outdated, throwing all the volume you can at a muscle in a single day. But even with more intelligent programming, you're going to work your muscles pretty darn hard, and you're going to feel it. And one of my favorite ways to alleviate the aches and pains in the muscles, joints, and tendons is to get a massage. But those can become pretty expensive over time, and you have to schedule it, go to a given place. It's much more convenient to get a massage from the comfort of home. And thanks to Bob and Brad, you now can, and with their newest massage gun, the S-Wave, this process has been revolutionized. It can be hard to reach all the areas that you want, and if your mobility is impaired, for whatever reason. The S-Wave fixes all of that and allows you to get a total encompassing surface area at one time. The S-Wave is the world's first 2-in-1 combination massage gun that combines the gun itself with a vibrating belt, providing both percussion and lateral vibration for comprehensive relief. The S-Wave was developed by physical therapists, and I cannot state enough how much I like to use this on my common problem areas of the neck and the upper back. So not only can this be used as a typical massage gun, you can attach the belt and wrap it around any parts of the body that you like. It also comes with an ergonomically friendly handle, and you can adjust how short or long you would like the belt to be based on the body part that you're targeting. This also means that you can cover your entire body in less time. The S-Wave includes 5 interchangeable massage heads, as well as the belt itself. It has 5 speeds ranging from 1800 to 3000 RPM, and it has a battery life of up to 3 hours when fully charged. This is a game changer in the massage gun game, and I love using mine. If you'd like to give the S-Wave a try, enter the code BNBSWAVE10 on the Amazon checkout page to get 10% off of your order. So we're going to start with biceps. And this is something that I have been really focusing on myself, and I'd say, well, pretty much every guy on earth is, but this is how I've done bicep curls for as long as I can remember. I have always kept the palms up the entire time. Now, certain pieces of equipment, like typical barbells and easy bars, and even preacher curl machines, you don't have an option, but what I've been doing a lot lately is a twist. So this is starting with a neutral grip at the bottom. As you go up, you twist into supination at the top. Then you return to the bottom, going back to that neutral position, keeping your elbows in the entire time. And this technique is going to work the full supination function of the bicep, which keeping a fully supinated grip the entire time does not do. So since barbells and easy bars are off the table for this method, we're going to have to use dumbbells, cables, and certain machines may let you do this too. The big advantage of cables and machines, at least in theory, is that you can incrementally add weight, whereas with most dumbbells, you're only going to be able to go up in 5-pound increments. In most commercial gyms I've seen, the dumbbells will have 2.5-pound increments up to roughly 30 pounds or so. But once you get pretty strong at curls, you're going to be outside that range. Now that said, a lot of cable stacks also have big weight jumps, and it's infuriating, because you would think all these cable stations could easily provide something like this, that good ones do, where you could increase the weight by 2.5 or even at least 5 pounds. Some of these cable stations I've seen only go up in 10-pound increments, and toward the bottom of the machine, it's closer to 20. But luckily, there is a way to alleviate this, at least for a lot of machines. You can get a gym pin, like you see here. Now this one is not name brand. I found it on Amazon. It works very well, and something like this is great for isolation work too, because that stuff is going to inherently stall faster than the compound movements. And keep in mind that progression is the name of the game. Even if your form is totally perfect, you're training intensely, all this other stuff, if you're not making progress, getting stronger in some form, you're not going to magically grow muscle. So I will link that down below if you want to check it out. Now, something to keep in mind with the bicep curls, I do not do all of them with this twisting motion. I still do the standard supinated grip on certain things, but I give the twisting one more priority. In either case, you want to make sure that you get full extension of the arm when you do your curls. At the bottom, you should be able to essentially flex your tricep. That's going to indicate that your elbow is as locked as it can be, meaning the arm is as extended as it can be. And one last note on the biceps here, because I am again guilty of this myself. I like to use back support when possible with curls, and the same applies for tricep extensions as well. So what happens commonly is you will see progressive overload consistently on your isolation movements, and it seems like it's smooth sailing. You're like, oh, I'm adding weight every single week, it's going great. Then you record your form, which a lot of you guys need to record your form. You cannot rely on looking at the mirror to do this, but you record yourself and you realize that you are starting to swing on all of your reps. And if you didn't have that swing and that momentum, you would not be adding weight as reliably as you are. But adding weight for the sake of itself is not the only thing. It's about keeping the form consistent in conjunction with progressively overloading. On the topic of triceps though, probably the biggest adjustment I've made with that is not going through a massive range of motion. And that's something I used to do in the past a lot as well. I would be under the idea that I have to get the deepest stretch possible on the triceps. And if you're like me with long arms, you can go pretty darn far. So what I used to often do on something like a skull crusher, I would drop the bar far below my head, to the point that it would even hurt my shoulders, but I was like, oh, I have to get as deep a stretch as possible, so who cares? Or if I was doing something like a cable press down, regardless of the attachment, I would lift my hands roughly to like my forehead level on the eccentric of each rep. So in terms of range of motion, what I do now, I will stop roughly shoulder height when I'm doing press downs, and if I'm doing some type of overhead movement, I will stop with my hands pretty much at the base of the skull. Now the clip you see here, I am doing skull crushers with the neutral grip tricep bar. I'm going down pretty far with these. I do test this out from time to time still. I'm at the point now where This does give me elbow pain. It's always something, man, shoulder or elbow with me. But I find that movements like this, I've tried JM press in the past too. I get the same problem no matter how exactly I do it. And I find that keeping the limited range, it can help in that aspect too. But just overall, I think it's better than going these really long lengths, because once you reach a point that your triceps are really about as stretched as they're going to be, and you just go lower than that, you're really only stretching out your shoulders and your back, and there's not really much to be gained there. And keep in mind as well, if you do have longer arms, what is considered a medium range of motion for you is essentially a long range of motion compared to a lot of the people that you'll see online. Another equipment tip for you too, I recently got one of these. I call it the loop rope attachment, but it has different levels that you can use. I like this much more than the standard rope you're going to find in a gym. It is much easier to grip, and this isn't only great for the triceps, this also is perfect for curls, straight arm lat pull downs, and even things like face pulls. Something else I've tried too is tricep press downs with a cuff around my wrist, as opposed to the typical handle. There is no headache when using these cuffs. You don't have to worry about awkwardly gripping other attachments, and you can easily go from pronated to supinated to neutral grip, or even angled, as easy as you'd like. You can use these cuffs for biceps, triceps, lateral raises. I've even done single arm lat pull downs with them, and you can even give them to your girlfriend as well. She can do glute kickbacks. Wait, what am I saying? You don't have a girlfriend. These give a lot of peace of mind as well in general. You don't have to rely on the gym's crappy equipment, always walking around looking for everything that you need. Even if it's taken by somebody else, you simply can walk in, use what you want. It's going to be the same thing every single time. You can stack up your gym bag for relatively cheap and take these anywhere that you go. Now up next is chest. And this is something that I was relatively unconscious of for a long time, and that realization was to stop the self-imposed angles.
I want to go mad with a broken freaking neck.
Now, this is ingrained in a lot of our heads. When doing a bench press, we're commonly told to do a slight to modest arch, because that's going to be safest on the shoulders, and it's going to allow you to lift a little bit more weight because you can cut down on the range of motion somewhat. And I understand that. And you could even do flat back on a barbell bench press if you wanted to. I don't think it's inherently dangerous if your form is good otherwise. So here is an example of what I mean. This clip was from a number of months ago. I am here on the pec deck, and you can see that before I start the set, I slouch forward, and the thinking I've had for a long time behind this was that, oh, I am essentially pre-stretching out the chest when I do this. But really, if you think about it, you're just going to engage the chest less overall. Now that effect is not going to be as large on a chest isolation type of fly, such as the pec deck, but if you're doing a typical press, it's going to be seen more there. Now compare that to this recent clip of me on the pec deck. You can see the stark difference in the angle of my torso. And something I've been doing recently too, in the same vein as this, I will scoot my feet back to allow that upright effect to really take place. I don't fully retract my scapula. I've talked about in other videos why you don't want to do that when it comes to training chest, even though so many people still commonly say to do so. They are well intentioned, but that can lead to movement dysfunction over time, as well as wing scapula when your back looks like this monstrosity. But once you can remove that angle and get your pecs sort of vertically aligned over the stomach, over the abdominals, even over the pelvis, in that sort of straight line, no matter the exact angle of the exercise that you're doing, you're going to really feel them as much as you can. And when it comes to things like flies especially, these absolutely smoke my pecs. So as mentioned on a typical barbell bench, I still see the case for a slight arch. You could argue you want to keep it as minimal as possible, but for pretty much every other chest exercise, primarily the machines and the cables, I like to do this form all the time now, and I can say without question it has really given me improvements in my chest in a pretty short amount of time. And when it comes to chest in general, and the same applies with delts as well when you're doing any type of pressing, something I notice with a lot of people is that if they take a closer grip, common long arm problem once again, you're going to have your elbows noticeably outside of your wrist during the eccentric, especially at the bottom. So to get the most out of any pressing motion that you're doing, you want to stack the wrist over the elbow as much as you can and keep that position for the entire rep. So this is probably going to be at least a medium grip, maybe even a wider grip, depending on how you define that. So keep that in mind too, and if you are somebody like me, if you do that elbows jetted out position for too long with that close grip, your elbows are probably going to feel like they're going to explode, and that's not good. Now when it comes to front delts though, that is actually where you may want to include a self-imposed angle. Because I've talked about this before, I see a lot of people when they do seated shoulder press, whether that is on a machine or using dumbbells on an adjustable bench, they are going to have essentially a totally vertical torso position, and when they do this, they are going to see their elbows really track behind their wrists as they go down, because there's no other way to complete the rep. This is a typical cause of shoulder pain, but most people don't realize that it's happening to them. I talk about that more in the video I have about shoulder pain. Specifically, you can click the top right to watch that. So we covered the arms and the chest in this video. If you guys want more videos like this, next up I would think would be the back. Let me know down below. And I do have one about abs as well. Check that video in the top corner too. I give you a very important form tip when it comes to abs that's going to really get the most out of each rep. But this has been it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the attachments I linked down below, and check out the Bob and Brad S-Wave if you'd like. The best way to get in contact with me is via Patreon. You can inquire about online coaching in the description box as well. Get lifetime access to our Discord server, and check out my programs and nutrition guide. I can give you all the information you need to make serious gains in less time. I've distilled it as much as I can in those links. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.